it's Kiki again, and welcome to another story time of Planet Moon. Today we are reading about Robopox. Let's go. Heavy snow is falling on Planet Moon. This is always a strange time of year, as the moon doesn't officially have seasons. But since scientists terraformed it, which means made it possible to live on, it kind of just happens now. Kimi and Lewis don't mind though. They love to play in the snow. Today they're trudging along to call on Max to see if their best friend wants to come out to make snow aliens or build an igloo. When they arrive at Max's house, Kimi reaches up and rings the doorbell. Ding dong! After a short pause, Ms. Baxter, Max's mum, answers the door. Hello, Ms. Baxter. Is Max home, they ask. Oh, I'm afraid not, she says, with a sad look on her face. Unfortunately, Max has been taken sick and has to spend the night in hospital. What? What's wrong? Is Max okay? Asked Kimi frantically. They never have had a friend go to hospital before. It's nothing too serious. Max has a nasty turn of Robopox and just needs to stay in hospital overnight for observation, Miss Baxter assures them. I'm just on my way up there now. I want to get there before the doctors finish their rounds. But seriously, seeing the look on Kimi and Lewis's face, don't worry. Max will be home before you know it. And with that, Ms. Baxter sweeps past them and heads up the road in the direction of the hospital. This is terrible. Is there anything we can do? Lewis asked, not really knowing how to feel. Ms. Baxter didn't seem to be too worried, but it's hard to share her confidence without seeing Max for themselves. Kimi seems to feel the same way because she looks at Lewis with a renewed determination on her face. We're going to the hospital to see Max. And for once, Lewis agrees without question. Actually getting to the hospital isn't at all that hard. They just hop onto the number 87 hover bus, which takes them all the way to the front door. And with a little help from a friendly administrator bot, they quickly discover that Max is staying on Ward 7. Easy peasy. When they arrive at Ward 7, however, it's slightly a different story. Kimi and Lewis are stopped abruptly at the door to the ward by a lady in a white coat. This must be the doctor. Whoa, children, where do you think you're going? I can't let you in there, says the doctor, blocking the door. What do you mean, demands Kimi. Our friend Max is in there. You can't stop us from seeing him. Even Lewis looks cross, and he never gets angry. The doctor's face softens. I see. Well, what you need to understand is that Robopox is very contagious. You can't go in there in case you catch it too. Your friend Max will be fit and well in no time. He just needs a little rest, that's all. And before Kimi and Lewis could argue another word, they had been whisked out of the hospital and back to the bus stop. Snow is falling even heavier now, and it's starting to get late. What do we do now? Dejects Lewis. We should just go home, I guess. If in our position, what would Max do? Asked Kimi. Another fire building inside her. She isn't ready to give up yet. Max will use every bit of power cell to help us. And we should do the same. We're going back. I don't know if that's such a good idea. You heard what the doctor said. We aren't allowed in there for a reason. But before Lewis can barely finish his sentence, Kimi sprints off back into the hospital. There was never really any chance of talking Kimi out of it. He doesn't know why he bothers sometimes. So Lewis waddles off after her. The warm draw of the hospital definitely seems more appealing than a cold bus ride home anyway. Kimi finds some spare nurse scrubs and forces Lewis into an abandoned wheelchair, deep under cover. They manage to sneak past 2 night guards, 3 nurses and a janitor. Eventually, they land outside the doors to Ward 7. Okay, This is it, Kimi says, before tentatively pushing the heavy wooden doors open, not knowing what they are going to find on the other side. Guys! Kimi and Lewis both jump as Max sits up and yells across the wall to them, You made it! I was starting to think you weren't going to come. Of course we were going to come, Kimi reassures him. As soon as your mum told us, we came straight away. We were so worried. Well, the good news is Dr. Khan says my pox are clearing up nicely and I can go home tomorrow. Max explains, but it really hasn't been that bad. Just super itchy. Kimi and Lewis are both extremely relieved to see that Max is okay, and the three of them stay up talking late into the night, exchanging stories. They speak quietly, of course, just in case they are discovered, until one by one they eventually fall asleep. The next morning is glorious. The sun shines down on the glistening snow and beams in through the large hospital windows. Our three little aliens jump awake as Dr. Khan and Ms. Baxter burst through the doors to the ward, chatting loudly. They stop abruptly when they see Kimi and Lewis. What are you both doing here? Asks Ms. Baxter, exasperated but not at all surprised. We came to check our best friend is okay, Kimi retorts defiantly, and it seems like he is, so... Kimi lowers her voice, realising she might have come across a bit strong. Can we possibly get a ride home with you, please, Ms. Baxter? It wasn't very comfortable sleeping on the floor. Dr. Khan steps forward. It's true, Max is well enough to go home, but I'm afraid you two, she gestures at Kimi and Lewis, are going to have to stay. It looks like you may have caught yourselves a bit of Robopox. And sure enough, on close inspection, small red spots have started to appear all over Kimi and Lewis's faces. Oh no, moans Lewis, knowing he only has himself to blame. I'll call your parents, says Dr. Khan before sweeping back out of the ward. The rest of the day went quite well. Kimi and Lewis's parents came to visit. Dr. Khan gave them cream for their pox, and Max was allowed to stay because he already had Robopox and is now safe from catching them again. So they laughed and played video games all the way up until the end of visiting hours, with Max planning to sneak back, of course. Everyone seemed to have fun, except for Lewis. He spent the whole of his time scratching his spots and complaining about how he always seems to find himself in these silly situations. But deep down he thought if someone else he loved was in the same position, he'd still do it all over again. Without a second's thought. The end. Wow, I remember when I first got Robopox. You have to try really hard not to scratch it, and your mummy and daddy are telling you not to, and you're just like, oh, it really scratches, but try not to. I really hope you enjoyed today's story on Planet Moon, and we hope to see you again soon.